Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to the Into the Wilderness podcast. I am your host, Byron Pace, and it is the 2nd of September 2021. We are back. You may have noticed that over the last month, I took a little bit of a sabbatical. It was it was a chance to catch up with life after 4 years of putting these shows out consistently. And also I was traveling an insane amount, partly podcasting or recording podcasts, and also making films and photography and writing. And it was just a nightmare to try and get all of that together at a time where I could get shows out. But anyway, we are back with a great first episode, which is part of an ongoing collaboration with Gunner Kennels, kicked off by a very moving conversation with the company co-founder, Addison Edmonds. We hear about his passion for working dogs and how the legacy of his incredible companion, Gunner, became this driving force behind the world's toughest transport kennels. If you want to read more about this story, you can pick up a copy of Volume 7, Modern Huntsman, which is the water issue, where you can read a masterfully written piece by our editorial director, Chris Dombrowski. You can get these at modernhuntsman.com. And lastly, before we jump straight into this, thank you very much to all the Patreon supporters out there, and particularly to those who are top tier, who include Colin Knight, James Martington, Mark Zabrowski, Richard McNeil, Richard Stevens, Ronnie Speakman, Thomas Cameron, and the team at South Ayrshire Stalking. If you would like to help support the show, either head over to my website, byronpace.com, find the podcast on there, or if you want to support on Patreon, go to patreon.com/byronpace. Addison, welcome to the Into the Wilderness podcast. It is fantastic to have another bird dog enthusiast on the show. I think you're probably only the second, like a true somebody who's really enamored with it. So it's great to have somebody like-minded in that regard, so that we can geek out on bird dogs a bit.
Wow, that's great to hear. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you have there's a story about what's kind of your story and the story of your company in the volume of Modern Huntsman, which is as we are recording this, shipping out right now. Tell me a little bit about before we get into that, tell me a little bit about your background and your love of bird dogs, and of course, Gunner, the bird dog.
Yeah, so grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and not too great of bird hunting opportunities around there, but I went down to some families' farms in Alabama and grew up upland hunting and waterfowl hunting and deer hunting, and it's kind of my first experience with bird dogs, and always had family dogs, chocolate labs growing up, but never had a true bird dog until I bought Gunner. I think my junior year of college, which would have been around 2007, 2008, I think, and started training him and felt like I had a pretty special dog pretty quickly.
So you were doing this while you were at college? Did it
Yep.
stay in like your flat or dorms or something?
Yeah. So we were just living in a little house off campus, and I built a kennel, like a run outside of my window, and I remember worrying if the dog was going to dig, so I dug out like a concrete moat for the fence to go in so he couldn't dig out, but I would just keep him in this outdoor kennel, throughout the day, and then he'd go with me everywhere, and so yeah, we made it work.
That's amazing. I had a dog during the period of time when I was at university as well, but I left him at my parents' house. I wasn't able to make it work while I was at school all the time. So were you kind of escaping at weekends to fulfill your desire to be out with the dog?
We would hunt pretty regularly throughout the week and also the weekends, and just always training him when he was little. And then as I graduated, I stayed in town and ran an advertising company that he went everywhere with me, and we used his pictures for our advertisements, and I was able to train all around town. There's like 3 or 4 really well-known Gundog trainers and breeders around Oxford, so I'd go out to different places and train, and then also a lot of hunting opportunities out there. So
was this the first Gundog you'd trained yourself?
Correct.
So what was that learning curve like? Because I think there's two things here. One is a lot of people will have questions about how do you train a dog, especially if they've never had a dog that they've trained for hunting before. But equally, I see a lot of people, and some of whom are friends of mine, who have bought dogs in the past, think that they can train them, and actually have ended up ruining the dog.
Yeah, I got pretty lucky. I mean, I've got really, really into it, and read as many books as I could, and watched videotapes, and at that point DVDs too, and just kind of took a little bit of everything that I'd learned, and everything that I saw was just really the first few months just concentrate on sit, stay here. The dog
Mhm.
will naturally want to retrieve, so you don't even have to worry about that. And so just focused on the basics, and he was very, very smart. And early on from the start, I remember telling my buddy, like, he was a dog trainer. I said, any flaws he has, I'm sure it's just me being my first dog to train, but we seemed to be able to communicate pretty well. So it was relatively easy. And since then, I've tried to train other dogs, and it seemed a little bit harder. But I think I have more going on later in life with starting the business. But yeah, when I had him as a puppy, I was kind of finishing up school, so I didn't have a full schedule of classes. So I was able to spend a lot of time with him.
So what that sort of growth period as you were learning from one another, I suppose. What did that look like? What did the two of you get up to? Because I know, as somebody who has, he's not here with me right now because I'm recording this sitting in Montana. But my old retired man, who is a cross between a Springer and a Cocker, is sitting at home with my parents. He doesn't hunt anymore because he's so very deaf. I mean, I'd take him on walks, and I think sometimes he thinks he's hunting because that's just what he loves to do. But I can't
Hmm.
actually really take him anymore because he has no idea what I'm asking him to do. But there is this amazing connection between people and dogs in general, but I would say that's elevated when it comes to working dogs.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And you know, early on, I would just go to different fields and parks, and start working on the line drills, and whistle work, and he always just was very fired up to retrieve, and that was really a reward to him. So it's much easier learning to train him, and on the I get it with an older dog that's more deaf. I didn't hear till just a few years ago a good little tip to go try to train your dog with duct tape over your mouth. Really, just use your eyes and your body, and see how well you can communicate. And
Huh.
I've tried it; it's pretty interesting.
You mean even as a young dog, as a training mechanism?
I tried this after after Gunner was 6, 7, or 8.
Okay.
I don't know how it would work as a young dog, but basically it was the whole mentality of where I read it was like you might be over communicating with your mouth when the dog picks up pretty well on body language and hand signals and stuff.
Interesting. And of course, then eventually, when your dog gets old and starts to lose its hearing, then you still have a way to really communicate with the dog. And that's probably my poor training of my dog.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the last year or two of Gunner's life, he was pretty deaf. I've gotten to be pretty bad in one of my ears, and there was a lot more handwork and just looking at each other than more of just vocal commands.
So, what was your go-to kind of favorite scenarios for hunting with Gunner when he was around?
Uh, Primarily waterfowl. I mean, we hunted at a river nearby with some on some oxbows, and some flooded fields, but everywhere around, within 2 hours of me, it was pretty good duck hunting in water, and you know, cold didn't phase him. He never had a no go or anything like that. He was always pretty fired up to go. So really, anywhere I could go, I didn't have a single set spot that I would always go to. Just get invited or invite myself to different hunts and try to pick up as many birds as possible.
But if I'm not mistaken, your dog Gunner also played a pivotal role in you meeting your wife. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a
Explain
it's
this
a
story to me. This
it's a
sounds like
funny
something out of a
story.
movie.
Yeah, so I started this advertising company, and we basically put framed posters above the urinals and bars and the ladies stall, on the back side of the door, and we advertised for local companies in Oxford. And
I mean, everyone pauses for a moment when you're taking a leak. That makes perfect
right.
sense.
Very captive audience, as people would tell me. And I was a terrible salesman, and I hated to sell, but it worked. And so my first client, actually, Ivy Jackson, who had a clothing boutique there. I had just finished up a hunt, and this was when Gunner was still a puppy. I would just bring him to the camp and then throw a little bird for him afterwards. But I took him out to the square, and we were walking around downtown there, and these girls came up to me, and one of them was Ivy, who, I told her what I did with this advertising company, and she ended up being my first client. And she pretty quickly said, "I've got this girl that you're going to marry one day." And I was just like, "Well,
That's
keep me
bold.
away from that." Yeah, it was weird. I was in no way looking for a girlfriend, much less a wife. And
You're like, I've got my dog and I've got hunting and I'm sorted.
yeah, I'm good. Yeah. So, anyways, fast forward, she introduced us, and we hit it off. And I think I met her in December of 2009, and we got married in December of 2012. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's wild to really look back at it, because so much has happened since then.
And is it a shared love of working dogs?
Yeah. So Emily, she was finishing up school when I had met her, and I just graduated. She really got into outdoor photography. This is before I was aware, besides the, really professional. I guess it was less of a thing for just a hobby, but she got into outdoor photography, and she'd go with me on the boat. She'd go with me to go hunt and watch Gunner. I always thought it was really cool when she would go with us, because I could tell Gunner was showing off. I mean, he was so much more serious.
Really?
Yes, you would take
Because
it.
she
It
was
was
there?
crazy. Yeah,
It's like,
I
hey,
just
dad,
yeah,
just don't worry, I got this.
it was crazy. I just remember telling her, like, you need to go with me more often, because he's like 10 times better dog when you're there. But she got some great pictures of Gunner in his early years and all throughout. But yeah, she's always been a big dog person. Her dad had hunting dogs, and she loves them. She does our marketing and branding, and she's kind of, her and another girl, Macy, have been kind of the two people behind our brand from the start. So she's still really involved in the business, and big dog person as well.
So, of course, we've been talking about this background and Gunner as part of your life and how that has evolved in terms of a relationship and how important that was to you. And you already alluded to the fact that Gunner is no longer with us, but his existence in your life was the catalyst for the business that you run now. So why don't you tell me how that came about?
Yeah, I've always kind of been a tinker, and always knew I wanted to start a business. And that advertising company I started was not really the end all be all. It was doing really well in business, but I kind of always felt like I had something bigger in me. And Yeti coolers had came out about a year or two before. I was that guy going through 3 or 4 Coleman coolers a year, and sponsored a Ducks Unlimited banquet. They gave me a Yeti cooler, and I remember thinking, wow, this is incredible. This is the last one I will ever need. I've still got that cooler and use it regularly. And I was training Gunner, and I'm always thinking of different ideas, probably like everybody else, of how to make things better. And it hit me when I was looking at my crate one day after it rolled over in the back of my truck, just from
This is a
taking
dog crate you're
turn.
talking about.
Yep. And I thought somebody needs to make a better dog crate, and the next best thing was a $2,000 aluminum box that takes up the whole back of your truck. I didn't have the money for that, and didn't want to take up the back of my truck, so kind of looked at Yeti and thought, I'm going to make the Yeti coolers of dog kennels.
Okay.
And
I mean, that's a pretty good ambition given like where Yeti is, and they did exactly the same thing, didn't they? There was a lot of coolers out there, a lot of which were not very good. So, like, well, how good can you make a product that actually a lot of people already use?
Yeah. So that was the idea. I remember telling Emily about it when we were dating, and she was like, I can see it all from here. Like, she's always had a pretty good vision for everything. And I remember thinking, well, can you tell me what it looks like? Because it took me like a year and a half to design the kennel after I sold that advertising business. But yeah, we just wanted to kind of make a best of the best, and hit it with a big hammer with every little feature that I wanted on there to make what I feel like is the best dog kennel on the market.
So tell me about that design process. So at this point, when you're thinking about creating this Yeti of dog crates, or do you call it a crate or a kennel, or how do you describe it?
Both, but it's
Both.
confusing because everybody. Yeah, I mean either or. I'd
Okay.
probably say kennel more often, but yeah.
Okay. Was Gunner still around at this point, or not?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So Gunner's going to get. Okay. Got you. So tell me about the actual design process, because it was more than just having a place that kept a dog inside. This was about the safety of your dog as well.
Right. When I came up with the idea, I thought, well, what does the best dog kennel mean? And I thought, number one is safety. It's got to be the safest. All these crates are made for travel, and none of them are safe.
Because they're really just to like separate your dog from the other stuff that you have in the back of your truck. That's the main
Yeah,
purpose of a dog crate normally.
yeah. If you get in a wreck, I think most of the time those things explode or fall apart, and the dog gets out. And so that was kind of the primary object. Number one is make it the safest, and so looked into different manufacturing processes and different features. I never had a good way to tie my kennel down to the back of my truck, so I added tie down pins and rubber feet so it wouldn't slide around, and a drain plug so it wouldn't, so you'd be able to clean it out and drain it out easily. And lockable latch. I had one of my college buddies have their dog stolen out of their crate at the Home Depot, and that always just really scared me that somebody's going to take Gunner,
Absolutely.
in a different crate. So I wanted to have a lock on it, and I sold that advertising company about a month after I came up with this idea, and moved back to Nashville and proposed and got married, and started working on the designs, and took about a year and a half to kind of flush it out, because I knew also I wanted it to be the best looking dog kennel, which might not mean much, but just to be the best, you kind of got to hit it on all fronts.
So like
And so,
the Apple.
yep,
Apple
yeah,
aesthetics.
yep, yeah. And I don't know. I don't have a great eye for it, but I can tweak or critique things a lot. I mean, it took me about a month and a half just to do the logo, which was based off a picture Emily took of Gunner right when we got married. But yeah, it was a whirlwind. I didn't really know anything about engineering or manufacturing, but I figured it. I got a bunch of confidentiality agreements out with different manufacturers and started talking to them about my ideas and my designs, and one thing led to another, and we had a kennel.
So the actual process of and the evolution of the design, how do you even go about such a thing? Because when you're looking at molded plastic or whether it be metal or something, it requires somebody to make that. So what was your design process to have these prototypes that you are obviously testing to get to the final product?
Yeah, I hired an engineering firm and went through all of my ideas and requirements, and then we just started out with sketches, going back and forth. And then when I finally realized, that shape, that's the right idea. Let's go towards that shape, and then we'd kind of hone it in, put it on CAD and or 3D renderings, and kind of go from one step to the next and making sure it's manufacturable, and then actually, with roto molding a big product like this, there was no real prototype. The first prototype
Okay.
was buy $100,000 tool or mold and
Wow.
make it. So I raised
That's
some
a
money,
big
and
commitment. So
yeah,
you
well,
were just, this was before the first iteration of it, like physical iteration of it. This was on paper and on a computer.
yeah. I mean, when I went to go raise money, I went and met with people with the little iPad Mini. That was the first purchase of the LLC when I started Edmonds Outdoors, which is just Gunner Kennels, the LLC. Um, and I went around and showed a CAD drawing of a kennel, and had a plan with, I'm going to make the best kennel, and here's why. Um, so then we manufactured, we pulled the trigger on the tools, and we made the first one. And my first step was to go crash test it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I was planning on selling kennels a week after we crash tested, because I thought it was going to perform perfectly. But
Okay.
we had to do a major overhaul on the door, and just have to have different iterations till we finally felt comfortable with how the crash test performed.
So how were you actually crash testing it?
So there's an independent third-party research firm called MGA Research. I believe they're throughout North America, but there's facility over in Manassas, Virginia, and there was a lady named Lindsay Wilcote who founded the Center for Pet Safety that had these crash test dummy dogs.
Okay.
And I
so like a
contacted
car
her.
would be crash tested.
Yep, and this is where
Okay.
they do crash testing for baby car seats and airline seats, everything. So I contacted the Center for Pet Safety and said, I've got this dog crate that I want to crash test, and they laughed and said, "There's no way any dog crate's going to pass a crash test.
Okay.
They're very violent, they're very brutal." And I said, "Well, let me at least just try." So, I think that we're probably the first dog crate that went through a crash testing process, and I spent a lot of money and took a lot of tries to. The whole goal of a crash test is containment of the dummy dog before, during, and after the wreck.
Okay.
And we learned a lot during that process and made some tweaks to the design and had to overhaul the whole door, and finally came out with what we wanted, and then started selling the dog kennels the way that we finally ended up at.
So what in the early examples that didn't work, like what was where was it falling apart? What was the problem when you were testing, going through these crazy crash tests?
Yeah, the first one we had the tie down pins were like a 1/4 inch in diameter. One of them bent out of place, and I said, "Nope, that's not good enough." So we moved it up to 1/2 inch and added a head on it. And that ended up, they all stayed in place. So I said, "All right, that's good enough." The first door we designed was like a wire door. The dummy dog just went right through that. Unfortunately, I'd already bought like $15,000 worth of those doors.
Oh my goodness.
So we had to scrap.
Did you find
that.
another use for the doors, or did they just get recycled?
I tried. It was going to make it really wouldn't work. But I tried everything I could, so we had to scrap that. And then we, I remember coming up with the idea for an actual door frame within the whole door system, and so we added a door frame and came up with a glass-filled nylon injection molded door with a paddle latch, and the door blew open in the next test, and then I added backup latches, and then the door blew open again, and I thought, well, we're using aluminum rivets, let's try stainless steel rivets, which added an extra $12 to our cost. But I remember thinking before that last test, I was like, if this doesn't work, I'm out of ideas, because I beefed up everything I possibly could, and sure enough, it worked. And so that's what we stuck with, but it was just kind of a trial and error. And then there was a Subaru of America and the Center for Pet Safety did a crate crash test worthiness study, and we were the top performer in that crash test study.
Incredible.
So that kind of put us on a national scale, where we're on USA Today, Good Morning America, and all that. And
that's a huge elevation in terms of getting the name out there. Yeah,
it was, and it really wasn't in that sporting dog market. It was more of just people wanting a safer option for their family dog. So we were kind of back ordered from the start, along with trying to navigate, startup business, where I think within about a year I ended up in the hospital with shingles, trying to do everything myself, from customer service to marketing and manufacturing and everything. So started hiring some of our team and growing, and we had our first kid the day we launched our website, and we had our fourth 48 months later, and I've been in a washing machine ever since then, but it's all good.
And what an amazing story. And of course, Gunner's face stamped on the front of it, Gunner Kennels.
Yep. When I was raising money, I always called it Gunner Kennels internally when I was building the plans, but I wasn't for sure that's what we were going to name it. I thought maybe Gundog Kennels or something. And I talked with a potential investor from New York, and he said, "There's nobody from New York that's ever going to buy something called Gunner Kennels." And I just kept my mouth shut. And finally I realized, I'm doing this for my dog Gunner. I'm what a better way to pay tribute to him than name it Gunner Kennels. So that's what we did. And New York is, I think, our second biggest state of customers.
No way. So he was wrong.
I guess so. Yeah. But I think, he was coming from, if you're anti-gun or something like that. Yeah. But I think it's more important about just the story of, I love my dog so much, regardless of what his name was. I wanted to make the best crate out there.
And at what point during this whole process, how long was Gunner with you?
So
during the evolution and launch of Gunner Kennels?
Yeah, we launched in 2015. He would have been about 6,
Okay.
and he passed away in March of this year at the age of 12. My math might not. Yeah, yeah, he was 12.
So he was a
He would have been.
fine old man in his last
Yeah,
years.
yeah. We had this time last year. He went completely paralyzed, and I drove him down to Mississippi State in the middle of the night to take him to the emergency room, and they said he had a disc that needed to be removed, but he'd never be able to walk or hunt again. And
Hmm.
I started putting him in physical therapy every day, and one of the physical therapists noticed this lump on his side and got that checked out, and they said, "Well, he's got cancer. He probably won't make it till Christmas." Well, he was already. We found out about September of last year, and I decided I'm going to hunt him as long as he'll hunt. And he got some dove hunts. We ended up doing about 17 different hunts, and I kept a bird from each hunt. And 2 weeks ago on my birthday, my taxidermist brought all 17 birds back that we have in our hallway from his last hunt. So I thought that was
Wow.
pretty cool to be able to do.
That's incredible. And of course, now the inspiration for this was Gunner, and his legacy in many respects lives on in the kennels, protecting other dogs.
Yeah, I never really thought about that till I read the article that just came out, but I think that's true. I mean, I think that it's really cool that we're able to save dogs' lives and do it kind of in the name of what he meant to me as my first hunting dog.
And I would imagine now at this point you must have had stories and feedback where cars have been in car crashes of some description and their dogs have been fine as a result of which. Have you got any examples of that?
Yeah, we've got more than we've shared.
Oh,
A lot of
really?
times there's insurance reasons that they don't want to share it. We've gotten two that the kennel not only saved the dog's life, but saved the passengers' lives as well by holding up the roof and
What?
having a space for the passengers to escape out of a flash flood. And
Geez, so this
um,
was a car that like flipped and got crushed or something?
hmm yeah,
Jeez.
and then part of a truck that flipped, and he said it kept the roof up enough to save him. And yeah, I mean everything from I think a truck was going 70 or 80 down the highway, and there was a cow in the middle of the road, and the dog was survived. And I mean, I've heard some horror stories, and after watching the crash test, which is just a 30-mile-an-hour wreck, I started wearing my seatbelt. Every time. It's just amazing how violent car wrecks can be.
That's incredible. And yeah, it's until I was aware of your story and these dog boxes, I had never even really considered it because my dog has never gone in a crate of any description. He either sits on the front seat or like just sleeps on something in the boot of my car, the trunk of the car. And I've never had him in a crate. But of course, when we as people are in a car, we are strapped in for that very reason, exactly as you've described. So I don't know, maybe it's something I need to really have a hard think about, because it would be tragic if even a low speed collision could kill or severely injure your dog.
Yeah, and that's something we try to stay away from because I don't really like the scare tactic or whatever. I've had
Yeah.
people at every trade show tell me, "Oh, well, I love my dog so much. He rides in the front seat with me," and I just kind of bite my tongue because if they're in the front or the back seat,
That's me.
they can become projectiles too and injure the
Yeah.
passengers and and be a distraction. And there's just all I know is ever since I saw our final crash test, I was like, my dogs are never riding in anything but a kennel, no matter what, um, just because of all those reasons. You don't ever plan on getting in a wreck, but it happens.
You just never know. And so where from that initial dog kennel, how has the company evolved and grown since then from this singular concept?
Yeah. So that the plan was build the best dog crate, kind of build our name on quality and safety and customer service, and then the pet product space not just in the sporting dog product space, but the pet product space is just a lot of junk. I don't know if it's because the dogs can't tell you how bad their food tastes or how shitty the toys are with them, but it's just, I wanted to build a brand name that we're proud of, and that we're proud to offer for our customers for products for their dogs. So we've kind of transitioned from Gunner Kennels to just Gunner, and similar to Yeti coolers is now just Yeti. But we're working on dog products of. I mean, we're working on a lot right now. We're still small. We have a small engineering team, but working on, you name it, the best possible products for all things dog.
So are there any that you can share with us now? Any that are out?
We launched our first product outside of dog kennels, which is a food crate.
That's sitting downstairs, right below where I'm sitting right now.
Nice,
actually,
nice.
Yeah, Tyler has it at his house.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm allowed to share anything else, but I'll tell you that within the next year and a half, we've got some pretty exciting stuff coming out. Been working for a long time on it. It's frustrating. I forget how long it takes to bring a new product to market, but we're working on a lot.
But it has to be right. That's the whole point behind your brand, and by the sounds of it, all the work that you've done to this point.
That's right. But I mean, nobody's perfect. And that's why even our kennel, I still feel like I'm constantly trying to make improvements on things that nobody's ever complained about, but I'm just obsessed with trying to make the best. And that's why I wanted to have a really good customer service team, because, nobody's perfect. If we made a mistake if we get something wrong, we want to make it right. And so we're trying to come up with a product that's as close to ready to market as possible, but then we'll get feedback from the field and take that and try to revamp each product and make it better, as we go.
Are there any additions or adaptations to the kennels that have come over time that maybe somebody who had one way back when you first launched doesn't know about, and it might be a good addition to the product that they already have?
Yeah, some of those earlier. We were at a show in Minnesota last weekend, and I talked to a customer that ordered a kennel like the first month we came out, and our door has improved a lot since then. I think we're going to send them a new door, but we've got a better backup latch system, and we've got a few of our accessories. So when I had a year and a half to design the kennel and then launch the company, and then I was dealing with a lot, and so we kept getting requests for new sizes and new accessories, and like a cover and a bed and a fan for it. But I didn't have as much time as I wanted to make the best product on those accessories. So we're taking this year and a little bit of next to go back and revamp those accessories. And so we're going to be releasing those and then getting more into products outside of the dog kennels.
Okay. That sounds great. Yeah, I'm just actually, while you were talking, I was just having a scan through your website. So tell me who, is it one or more than one, came and followed in Gunner's footsteps now that he's no longer with you?
Yeah, so I bred Gunner about 5 years ago, and because I was like, I always want to have a dog from his line, and I had him trained. I didn't have the time to train him myself, and got him back. And after he was about 1.5, him and Gunner just started fighting, and I couldn't have them around each other without fighting. And we had 3 little kids at the time, and I couldn't have both. I was trying to figure out what to do with that dog, but the dog that we bred him with, that dog got hit by a car, and it's my wife's best friend in Mississippi, and so they offered they would love to have that puppy because he was very similar to his mom, and so they've got the puppy, and I've got a couple other buddies and cousins that bought one of those puppies from that litter, so I still know of like the direct line of Gunner. But so we had a golden doodle. Emily, my wife, bought a golden doodle right when we started dating, and that dog passed away from cancer a couple of years ago. And so she was ready for another kind of family dog, and she picked up Teal, which is a standard poodle, about 2 months ago. So we've got one puppy running around the house right now, and then I've got a red lab that should be on the ground this fall and should be able to pick up this winter. And I'm still going back and forth between names, but yeah, so I don't have a hunting dog right now or for this season. It'll be a weird season not having number one, Gunner with me, but just number two, a hunting dog.
It's a strange thing if you're used to being out with your dog all the time and all that. You get so, well, for me personally, and I'm very much a dog person, I get so much more out of my day when I have my dog with me than other days where maybe for whatever reason he's not with me, or I'm not hunting, even at home in another country. And as much as I enjoy watching other people's dogs work, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a strange thing, but it is also equally, it's a beautiful thing to have the opportunity to build a new relationship with a new dog going forward, and log all of those memories through experiences. So that's an exciting aspect that you have to look forward to.
Yeah, it should bring out more of the product kind of judgmental side of things out of me when I'm in that puppy training mode. I kind of am always constantly thinking, like, how could I make this better for the dog? And it helps kind of bring new ideas for new products as well. So that should be helpful too.
Where's a good place for people to have a look at your story and the products that you have and all the social and things that you're posting and new products coming up?
Yeah, I think just gunner.com. It's gunner.com. And then I think we've got a Facebook page. Um, and then we've got an Instagram page, which is probably where, all the new stuff will be announced. But we're direct to consumer, so we only sell our kennels through our websites, and then our partner program, which is built of like breeders and trainers throughout the country. So I think gunner.com is probably the best bet.
It's a really beautiful story, and I think I did the last read of the article, which is the written version, I guess, to some extent, of this podcast, just before it went to design, and it was so touching, and I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to also get on a call from you and hear the story firsthand. And that story is in the latest volume of Modern Huntsman, so people can go and see it there, and which is shipping.
Yeah, we just got ours in yesterday.
Oh, brilliant!
I was taking a look at it about an hour ago and kind of got choked up reading it. It was a rough time shortly after March, and then kind of getting into a normal day to day, and then read that article. It kind of hit me with emotions all over again, but that's how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, well, it is. I think if it didn't, then there would be a problem. I think it speaks volumes that those emotions carry forward through time, and that's the way it should be with our partners in life, be that dog or people.
That's right.
Addison, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing this story and creating this safe haven for our great companions. The first one that I actually put my hands on is the one also sitting downstairs right now. Is not in the truck at the moment. But hey, actually, just a question while I'm thinking about this: do you do international shipping?
We've got them in like almost every special forces unit throughout the world.
Okay.
For the working dogs, but I think that they've turned that off for the moment. So where it's only in America and Canada, I believe, but we will be opening it back up hopefully for the next year or so.
Okay, well, I'll have to keep in touch with that because my dog doesn't come in the car all that much anymore, but maybe if there's another dog to follow in his footsteps, I think I might need to look at a Gunner Kennels. So maybe that can be in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Addison, thank you very much for your time today. It's been great to speak to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.